sociopath could kill you, run over your dog, or win the lottery and feel the same way about it. Some might be questioning why and how a serial killer could partake in these horrific acts. Thanks to the relatively new broad field of criminal and forensic psychology, professionals have researched, theorized, and experimented on the logical answers to the public's questions. In my informative speech, I explain some psychological reasonings behind serial killers and their murders from childhood to the crime. Serial killers may be predisposed to premature psychological damage. The earliest damaging stage can be explained by the object relation theory. The caretaker should encourage and excite the infant's interest and provide support during negative experiences. This helps the child to learn to cope in the future. Infants being acknowledged by important figures, typically the mother, the child learns that they are valued. Another way caretakers can cause psychological damage is ruining the idolization experience. This time it is most likely the father. He is idealized as powerful, perfect, or valuable. Knight stated in some thoughts on the psychological roots of behavior of serial killers as narcissists, "You are perfect and you are part of me." The infant learns of self-importance and feels a part of something perfect and idolized. The damage to this idolization significantly impacts self-esteem. Feelings of inadequacy and shame are hidden by hollow emptiness, envy, and rage. Other predisposed aspects are the environment and genetics. Many serial killers come from a dysfunctional family with abuse and neglect, with absent fathers and controlling authoritative mothers. Almost all serial killers were sexually, emotionally, or physically abused and have experienced rejection. The Academy quoted in the article Nature versus Nurture, How Serial Killers Are Born, 48% of them have been rejected as children by a parent or some other important person in their lives. Ted Bundy believed his mother was his sister for many years and lived with abusive grandparents. As a response to these abuses, adult serial killers' aggression matures into homicidal envy and rage. The abused child perceived the sexual abuse as a loss of power and control. The serial killer's sexual humiliation and helplessness is betrayed by such violent and brutal murders. Many criminologists believe serial killers have genes that form the chemical balances of the brain, ideas, thoughts, body, and actions. Dr. Richard Davidson compared brain scans of those likely of violence and those who were considered normal. Gillette quoted in Why Do Serial Killers Kill? Research has shown that serial killers are linked to having brain abnormalities. Those convicted of murder with antisocial or aggressive disorders had scarce activity in the orbital frontal cortex and the anterior cingulate cortex. They control the emotional outbursts and responses to fear. Jeffrey Dahmer at an early age was a fun, bright, and lively child who enjoyed playing with other kids. It wasn't until the Dahmer family moved states until he began to get antisocial and shy. Despite the baffling argument between nature versus nurture, there are plenty of recurring common characteristics between serial killers. Horror films and media stereotype serial killers falsely. While doing this, it misrepresents the true character of a serial killer. The Texas Chainsaw Massacres portrayed the exact opposite of Ted Bundy. You can see he was tall, scary, had a low IQ, and killed everyone he saw. And then Ted Bundy was played by Zac Efron in the movie, who was handsome, charming, and attractive. These illustrations do not accurately represent serial killers. They are impossible to distinguish based on physical appearances. All serial killers have a chameleon nature to blend into society without being detected. Most have children, jobs, and wives. Bethel quoted in the article Inside the Mind of Serial Killers, "They look just like everyone else. They could be friends, neighbors, or even the person standing next to you at the supermarket. They are observant and know how to act in social situations." This is one of the reasons Ted Bundy was so hard to catch. No one suspected a charming law student to become a murderer. Ted Bundy was also highly intelligent, and that is another common characteristic. Ted Bundy acted as his own lawyer in court and continued to study law in prison. While with little education, serial killers can still outsmart police by disposing traces of evidence. Rosewood quoted in 9 Early Warning Signs, "Many have high IQs." With being smart, it can't force emotions. Another common characteristic is sociopathic behavior. This behavior is experienced by some of the most dangerous serial killers. These killers lack remorse, guilt, and cannot empathize with others. Most of these killers who experience sociopathic behavior are aggressive and are fascinated with blood, death, or violence. With these missing human abilities, it is more likely to drive an impulse to kill repeatedly. Along with common characteristics, these serial killers share common warning signs. One of the most concerning warning signs is killing or torturing animals. Due to being alone, like Dahmer, serial killers torture and kill animals to find comfort, fulfillment, pleasure, and a need to satisfy themselves. Children who abuse animals feel powerless in their household, and by killing animals, they gain that power and control back. Another warning sign in abuse in childhood is antisocial behavior. This stems from children who were abused or diminished by important people in their lives. This behavior also stems from a fascination with pornography and sex. With rejection, they find comfort in fantasies and dreams where they create that they are in control. The urge to kill turns these fantasies into a reality that they control. They are exposed to abuse and bottle up their emotions. Because of this, they gravitate towards isolation. They tend to wet the bed early in childhood, torture animals, and start committing small crimes at a young age. Another warning sign between serial killers is mental illness. The most common mental illnesses among serial killers are schizophrenia, borderline personality disorder, and antisocial personality disorder. The most notorious serial killers suffer from schizophrenia. This causes voices in their head telling them to commit the murder, also known as a visionary killer. When serial killers realize their problem, they typically abuse substances like drugs and alcohol. As I alluded to a visionary killer, this is one out of the four classifications of serial killers. To classify the serial killer and their crimes, there are four types of killers: visionary, missionary, hedonistic, and power and control ordinary. Visionary killers imagine voices or a higher power telling them to commit the act. Missionary killers target groups such as homosexuals, race, religion, and or prostitutes. Jeffrey Dahmer can be classified under this because his victims are homosexuals, with the majority of them being African American. He can also fit into the hedonistic killers classification, who receive pleasure from the act. Power and control killers are the ones who feel powerless and helpless in their day-to-day life. With killing, they can be in control over the victim. They often project their emotions and self-esteem onto their victim by acting out the murder. Ted Bundy's victims resembled his ex-girlfriend. He killed these women to subconsciously feel power over again, and he projected his rage and hatred towards them based on the brutality of the murders. Criminologists and law enforcement also classify them based on the crime scene of murder. Organized serial killers commit his acts with thoughtful care, perfect their crime, and plan out the actions. They are sexually and socially competent, and they can adapt to roles in society like work and family environments. They erase or leave little evidence by taking their victims to multiple locations and not leaving the body at the crime scene. They are fully prepared for the murder by carrying a weapon of their own choice, having their transportation, and knowing the steps to avoid being caught. They also enjoy watching themselves on the news. The way the serial killer commits his murder can be revealing. An organized serial killer stabs the victim precisely in one small area or uses a gun. Using a gun reveals the serial killer enjoys the victim actually being dead rather than the feeling of killing. And on the other hand, disorganized killers are the opposite. They're isolated, withdrawn, socially inadequate, and sexually incompetent. They leave multiple traces of evidence behind, and they kill their victims with whatever's handy, the spot where the availability of the victim. They leave multiple traces of evidence behind, and their victims are picked at random. They act on opportunity and often have mental illnesses. Their favorite part of the murder is the feeling of killing rather than them being dead. Wounds all over the body suggest rage and hatred. Messy and sloppy crime scenes indicate the serial killer is disorganized and out of control. This also makes it easier for police to catch these killers. As concluded, I shared the psychological roots and explanations from childhood to their crime. Now, you understand some potential reasonings for serial killers due to psychological and environmental factors. You can test these explanations out on previous serial killers or even the people sitting next to you. Thank you for listening to my speech.